Well, something strange continues to plaster our skies across America. Last week, RFK Jr.'s former running mate, Nicole Shanahan, she was on our show, but she also posted this on X. Based on what I'm seeing and hearing from whistleblowers, there's a very real possibility that the biggest contributor to our atmospheric pollution isn't your fireplace or your car. It's the lingering effect of geoengineering and stratospheric projects. These programs appear to be pumping far more into our skies than anything coming from a modern fuel-injected engine or even today's coal-burning plants, which can run in highly advanced filtration systems. Right, we have coal scrubbers, right, that clean all of this. And then over the past few days, bizarre objects have been falling from the Florida skies. Mike Adams over at Natural News has been running tests on these objects for months now. Aerosolized bioweapons, he asks. Strange diploid biomasses falling out of the sky in Florida been captured under the microscope. What the hell is this? Dane Wigington is the lead researcher and administrator for the website geoengineeringwatch.org. He's the executive producer for the groundbreaking film. I encourage you to go to see it. It's a climate engineering documentary called The Dimming. Go check it out. Dane has devoted the last 20 years of his life to constant research on this issue of covert global climate engineering, and he joins us now. Dane, good to have you back here on Redacted. We are thrilled with your expertise on this. I think there's a lot more awareness now starting to surface from at least maybe politicians, maybe the media, maybe starting to pay attention to this. I don't know, but it seems like we're making some headway. And then we hear this story out of Florida with these weird, biomass modules here. What do you make of this sort of aerosolized bioweapon that we could be seeing in Florida?
We shouldn't expect otherwise, Clayton, Natalie. And again, thank you both for your voice and your attention toward the skies. But this is business as usual for governments going back many, many decades. We know as far back as 1977, according to the Washington Post. Even up to that point, there had been no less than 239 open-air biological tests conducted by the U.S. military against innocent, unknowing civilians. So this is business as usual.
What?
In any given location and with any given event, we can't know exactly what's being dispersing. There's nothing to stop them from dispersing anything they want. We do know, based on hundreds of lab tests, many of those taken working with the University of Minnesota and many from geoengineeringwatch.org in California, that we have polymer fibers and graphene in our precipitation. Both of those elements are named in climate engineering patents, but they are also used as biological carrier platforms in biological warfare to carry a pathogen from the clouds to the ground. So why would we think this isn't going on? Certainly, we have more dots to connect with that as well. We have Italian researchers that identified CV19 attached to airborne particulates. We have the second most recognized climate engineer in the world, Dr. Ken Caldeira, who stated on the record, we own an audio of him stating it, that one of his jobs for the DoD was to design methods of spraying pathogens into clouds to infect the populations below. So there's too many puzzle pieces that connect here.
So Mike Adams posted this just a short time ago, kind of an update on this story. He says, I have disturbing update on the barium fallout from chemtrails and the weird fog events. In our mass spec lab using ICP-MS analysis, we're seeing barium-137 at estimated levels exceeding 150 parts per million. And we are now acquiring external standards to run a full quant test on this element in the near future. Is barium-137, which means it's an atomic mass of 137. The isotope of barium is known to be largely created by the beta decay of cesium-137, which is a highly radioactive death powder that's used in dirty bombs and is one of the byproducts of nuclear detonations.
Here's where the equation becomes much more complicated. It appears, based on one published study at least, that coal fly ash may be being used as a base material for the ongoing aerosol spraying operations. And I want to make that clear. These are sprayed payload dispersions because there seems to be a pushback effort now, even by some organizations that are close to this administration, trying to change the narrative that this is just jet exhaust. We're way past that point. We have long since proven this is absolutely not jet exhaust. We're not seeing just condensation trails in the sky. We have up-close film footage of these aircraft at altitude, KC-10s, KC-135s, C-17 Globemasters, nozzles visible, turning dispersions on and off. So this effort to regurgitate the official denial of what we see in our skies as being just jet exhaust is even being adopted and pushed by some heads of organizations that are close to the administration, and that's very disturbing for us. For the record, I spoke to Robert Kennedy about 5 weeks ago. He contacted me through this organization that has now changed their narrative to jet exhaust. And the conclusion of my conversation with Robert, who wanted my opinion as to what would be the biggest first step we could take to resolve this issue in our skies, and certainly anybody in the administration should know this already, but we need carved in stone whistleblower protection that's well publicized, and we would have a stampede of people stepping forward. Because as I told Robert, I've had a NOAA scientist, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, state to my face, quote, "We all know this is going on. We have no First Amendment protection. We don't know what to do. We have an illegal federal gag order on all National Weather Service and NOAA employees. First step might be to lift that gag order instead of firing these people, and maybe the firings of them will create enough anger where they will stand together and stand up and tell the truth while it can still make a difference." Because maha anything, Clayton and Natalie, maha anything means nothing, zero, unless or until the ongoing atmospheric spraying operations of 40 to 60 million tons of highly toxic nanoparticles annually. Until that stop, maha anything means nothing. And the coal fly ash does contain the same elements that Mike found in his tests, including the barium, the cesium, and many other elements. So it's quite a plethora of toxic elements that we're sucking in with every breath. It needs to be dealt with or we're done.
Yeah.
How devastating are these particles for Americans? You know, you talk about
humans,
you know,
animals,
but flying over our skies every day. Our audience right now, I'm just seeing so many people in our chat room are saying they see it every day. And some days they refuse to go outside because they know that it affects their health. They feel it affecting their health. Seeking Truth says, "I'm sick of being poisoned. I'm sick of it." So many of our viewers are saying they're absolutely sick and tired of this. What exactly are these chemicals doing to the human body and the soil?
It's an endless list of downstream cascading consequences to our health, neurological, degenerative diseases. And again, I want to stress these particles are dispersions. We will post soon at geoengineeringwatch.org my discussion with a top microbiologist from Rensselaer Polytechnic University in New York, world-renowned lab. Their conclusion, based on analyzation of tests that geoengineeringwatch.org took at altitude from a very expensive and hard to acquire private jet and a National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration flying lab, and their determination at Rensselaer Polytechnic, these are manufactured particles, period. And again, coal fly ash is a base material. So the list of toxic materials is extremely long, and this is imperative to point out. All these materials, aluminum, barium, strontium, manganese, even the elements Mike found, barium, cesium, there's many more on top of that, but they're all toxic by themselves. When you combine them, you get synergistic toxicity, and that can push the overall toxicity through the roof. So in the case of mercury, which we all have in us now, and every person that we've tested at Geoengineering Watch, hair, blood, urine, packed with all of these metals, we know from peer-reviewed study, when you combine aluminum, which most know is toxic, it's toxic to all life forms, period, no exceptions, and you combine that with mercury, the overall toxicity escalates as much as 10,000%. That's 100 times worse. It's a wonder any of us are walking and talking at this point. It's being uptaken in everything, our food, our water. And so let's use the bees for an example. Natalie, Clayton, have you seen the recent published studies on the bees? They are virtually collapsing this year. Have you seen that?
Not the most recent studies, no. We actually had bees for quite a while in our own beehives until some massive Asian hornets came and killed them all. But no, we haven't seen the most recent studies on that. Can you enlighten us?
I'll wrap this into our health. So this year, we're told the bee collapse was somewhere in the range of 65%. But what they don't tell you, that's 65% of the 20% that was remaining. We've already lost about 80% of all insects, terrestrial and aquatic. So now we're down to single-digit percentages of the bee populations left. That's extremely ominous by itself. But we have peer-reviewed study, and your listeners can look this up. I encourage them to do so. Bees, aluminum. We have peer-reviewed study to prove, aside from all the other factors affecting bees, farm chemicals, frequency transmissions, which are also part of climate engineering, by the way. But we have peer-reviewed study in the case of aluminum to prove that the bees are dying of massive aluminum exposure. So much so that they're exhibiting symptoms that resemble Alzheimer's and dementia in a human being. They can't even find their way back to the hive. Why is that not headline news everywhere? Every single rain test we've taken, the geoengineeringwatch.org contains copious quantities of aluminum, and this is nanoparticle form, if you will. So the smaller the particle, and you can fit up to 100,000 nanoparticles across the width of a single human hair, the smaller the particle, the more toxic it is, the more lethal it is, the more bioavailable, the more bioaccumulative. It is absolutely positively in every breath we take at this point. How is that not a fight for life? And back to Maha, again, how can Maha anything mean anything unless or until these programs are stopped?
What happens if the bees disappear? The bees are almost gone. First of all, what's the motivation to kill them off? Is it depopulation? Is that the agenda here? Depopulation? I know it's a lot of people in the chat room saying right now this is about depopulation, but what happens when the bees go? We all go?
Well, according to Einstein, yes, we would have only a few years after that point, and we're losing all the pollinators, not just the bees. In regard to the agendas, that is a very complex question, and the answer is complex as well. And we have too many people grabbing for this or that conclusion to that. It's many, many things. So are those in power trying to depopulate? I think that's clear at this point. They've all talked about it for decades, and they certainly have done from multi-directions, from the injections to countless releases of pathogens. Are we not to think there's hundreds of biolabs around the globe that are engineering exactly the kind of pathogens that we're seeing. Are we to think that they're not being released? Of course they are. So again, we have that aspect, and certainly populations are becoming a rapidly increasing liability to those in power, especially in the US where the population is heavily armed. Again, we're not just expendable, we're a rapidly increasing liability. But in regard to the destruction of the planet's life support systems itself, which almost no one is focused on, economic anything, sanction anything, all that is just a result of collapsing ecosystems around the globe, and now not enough to go around. And that needs to be the focus. The environment has historically provided 75% of all global GDP for free, no more. And when you don't have a functional environment, you no longer have civilization, and soon you won't have the human race or anything else on the planet. And geoengineering is the single most destructive factor, not the only factor. Again, we've laid waste to the planet in countless ways, but climate engineering has disabled the planet's life support systems. The planet cannot respond with this climate engineering straitjacket. So this is being used as a weapon of war. Natalie and Clayton, we see agricultural regions systematically targeted with flash freeze, flash drought, flash flood. But these operations are highly toxic, so it's killing root systems. Natalie and Clayton, have you seen how many trees are tipping over every time the wind blows?
Well, I just literally today, there's a video that went viral in Pennsylvania near my old stomping grounds. And a woman was just sitting there in traffic and a massive tree just fell right over on her car and smashed her car.
Exactly. So this is, again, we see no decomposition in the forest anymore. There is no forest smell in the forest anymore. Zero, nothing. Because not only are the root systems being poisoned, we have peer-reviewed studies to prove that bioavailable aluminum causes root systems to shut down nutrient uptake. They die a slow, protracted death. Beetles are simply a symptom of a sick, dead, dying tree. But we also have the stomata. That's the respiratory ports on everything from crops to forests. They're shutting because climate engineering is destroying the ozone layer, without which we all die. And we are perilously close to functional collapse. You can feel how hot the sun is on you. And it's not hairspray cans, Clayton and Natalie, it's climate engineering. These other factors are real, but they're a very small portion of what's occurring. Climate engineering, by far the biggest source of ozone destruction. So the intense UV, the toxic rain, the dead soils, dying root systems, and forests shutting their stomata so they don't breathe, they don't absorb CO2, they don't release oxygen. By the way, atmospheric oxygen content also plummeting now. So again, geoengineeringwatch.org is focused on what's happening in our skies because it's weather, chemical, and biological warfare from which we cannot escape anywhere. If we don't deal with it, we're done. That simple.
Dane, I'll get you out of here on this. This story kind of made the rounds maybe last week when we learned about what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was doing, as well as other philanthropists and billionaires about the global seed program. So it turns out that they are heavily involved in the seed programs, particularly those focused on developing climate-resistant crops and helping small farmers in developing countries. And they have these seed banks where they have funded them. These sort of, I guess they're like Monsanto and other resilient seeds that are being held by these billionaires that we don't have access to. What the hell's that about?
You're completely correct. And let's add this to the list. Aluminum resistant crops. How about that? Why would we need that? Because again, we're talking about tens of millions of tons of toxic aluminum nanoparticles. Why would they use aluminum? I asked the world's most recognized geoengineer on film, on the record, at an international geoengineering conference. This is all shown in the Deming documentary. After he proposed dumping tens of millions of tons of toxic new aluminum and nanoparticles into the atmosphere annually, my question to him was, have any toxicological studies been done at all, human and or environmental? His answer, in the end, no. Could terrible things happen tomorrow? We don't know. What kind of an answer is that from the world's most recognized geoengineer, Dr. David Keith? And again, if that's the attitude with scientists, they clearly don't care about the consequences of anything they do. And we're about to reap the repercussions from that. And again, no matter what other causes or concerns people have, and there are many valid ones, I don't deny that. If we don't deal with this, all of those other causes and concerns will very soon become moot. So again, our message to the current administration and RFK and HHS and MAHA, if we don't deal with climate engineering, nothing else matters, including the whole MAHA everything. Doesn't matter if we don't deal with this.
Well said. Man, we've got people like Nicole Shanahan paying attention and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talking to you on the phone. These are all positive signs moving us hopefully in the right direction. I think there seems to be an awakening.
I hope that's true. I hope that's because Robert knew about this since 2012 when Woody Harrelson briefed him in depth. I knew about that when it happened, when Woody told him. I knew about that. And nothing happened, zero, for 12 years until Robert was asked by some important people to interview me. They called me as well and told me that interview was going to happen. So I hope there's a lot more initiative taken than what's already been taken because we don't have much time left.
Yeah, I agree. Well, now he's in power. He's been there for about 30 days. So let's hope that there's some action taken immediately during this Trump administration. I hope so. Fingers crossed. I'm hopeful. I'm a hopeful kind of person. So I will continue to pray in that regard. Dane, great to see you. Thank you so much, as always, for your expertise. I encourage our viewers to go watch the documentary, The Dimming. Visit geoengineeringwatch.org and study Dane's great work and the team there. Thank you, Dane. We really appreciate it.
Very grateful to you, Clayton and Natalie. Very grateful to both of you. And I would end with this. We're the ones we've been waiting for. And I'm very grateful for your help in sounding the alarm. It's up to us. We need to move this fight forward. Again, I'm very deeply grateful to you and your followers. Thank you.